Hey everybody, it's me again. Hey, it's Romania Black, and if you haven't watched my video that came out a few days ago, I am coming off of being sick. I do feel much better than I did several days ago. There's going to be some reactions come out after this one where I will sound really hoarse and like garbage, and so I apologize for that. But I got back from my trip and I caught a sinus infection, flu bug, whatever. And so I have been like going the last 4 days without doing any recordings, or the ones that I have done have been very short and I've not been happy about it. And so finally I woke up and I was like, okay, I can talk pretty decent now. So I wanted to watch episode 14 of the Apothecary Diaries because it's been like 8 days since I've seen an episode, and episode 15 is about to come out, and I would like to record that here in a couple days as well. But yeah, so we're starting the second core. I will go ahead and tell you, because my moderators have not gotten to the episode 13 comments yet, I am not looking at the OP. I'm going to go ahead and skip to 1 minute and 29 seconds to go ahead and start at the end of the OP because I'm just not ready yet. I don't know if there's any spoilers. I don't want to be spoiled. I like going in blind. So we're just going to skip that OP for now. I will see it by the end of the season, obviously, but I want to skip it for now. Just for now, because I have a sneaky suspicion, because people have been super quiet about it, that it's got spoilers in it. So whatever. I only have one comment for episode 12, which is by Anime Annie. Episode 12 and episode 11 were doozies. I almost felt great to have episode 13, even though there was a lot of theorizing about episode 13 before I left for my trip, which it's great to finally come back to that. I do want to make note that episode 11 and 12 were interesting, but Anime Annie has a good comment here, so I want to talk about for episode 12. And I'm going to say it verbatim. Now, I've seen some comments about people being uncomfortable with the way Jinshi got on top of Mao Mao and leaned in close to her. Some I dismiss because they come from the same people that take issue with their age difference, forgetting that Jinshi is only a little older than Mao Mao. Yeah, so to kind of break up Anime Annie's content there, yeah, in the show, Jinshi is portraying a 24-year-old, but they're actually 19, and Mao Mao is 18. So y'all, they're all legal. There's only a year of age difference between the two. Mao Mao's just a tiny girl. Petite girls exist. They do exist. So just because she doesn't have big boobs does not mean that she's not a full-grown woman. So I let's put that to rest. But anyway, as for the rest, I can understand how it could be viewed through such a lens that would make someone uncomfortable. For me, because he moves so slowly and moves towards her slowly, he gives her time to make the decision if she should stop him, whether that be verbally or physically, as Mao Mao considers. But Mao Mao does neither. She even closes her mouth rather than speaking up, and I also feel like at first it's Jinshi's almost daring Mao Mao to continue her insistence about his frog. And once in that position, his feelings step in and he forgets the main reasoning behind why he's on top of her. Yeah, so there's a lot going on in that scene. Jinshi, obviously, I think kind of gets overwhelmed by his actual desire for Mao Mao. And while he was trying to show her, like, hey, I'm not joking. It's not a damn frog. That's my penis. You want to find out? Which is kind of joking on his part. I don't think he actually would have done any penetration or tried to assault her. I don't think Jinshi would have done that. I think that in the moment he does like lean in to kiss her because he kind of gets caught up in the moment of like, I'm right here, let's go. But here's the thing. I've watched a lot of shows that deal with sexual assault at this point. That scene in episode 12 did not bother me because one, it was not in the same context as those other scenes. Go check them out, or don't if that's a bother to you. But also, I do agree, he did do it slowly. He gave her time. And if you're like, well, Mao Mao is assertive, damn it. Mao Mao is, if Mao Mao don't like something, she's going to push away and be like, no. Mao Mao, we got to have a little bit of faith in her character. Girl is strong. She will resist it if she wants to. But she didn't, because she was kind of like, okay, we'll see where this goes. And with Mao Mao being kind of an asexual coded character, which I fully relate to, I do understand from her perspective being like, I'm not uncomfortable with this. Okay. Now, I think that if there had been, it was teetering on the edge, if there had been a few more factors at play, I could definitely see why people would have issues with it. And if you have issues with it, that's fine. Just, don't try to get on to people that don't have issues with it, because I don't think it's, oh my gosh, to that level. So I am drinking a lot of what we call in the US emergency, which is like vitamin C to the max. This is supposedly strawberry kiwi flavored or strawberry lemonade flavored that I put in water. If you're curious about Emergency, does it taste like strawberry lemonade? Kind of. If you diluted it with tap water for about a gallon, it's like 1 part strawberry lemonade, 3 parts tap water. But it's giving me vitamin C, so I'm not going to complain. And it does make me feel better. So we'll just go with that. But thank you, Anime Annie. I think that there were a lot of people that commented about that in the comment section, but I really liked how eloquent Anime Annie was with her reasoning there. So yeah. So we're going to start 1 minute and 29 seconds in. Thank you all so much for being patient with me. I put a video out a few days ago where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get this out on time. I think where I'm at now with reactions, I'm a little behind on the commissions, which, those are movies, and I want to wait till my voice is a bit better before I can devote to an hour and a half long reaction to something like that. But with that being said, I did feel confident enough this morning to be like, I think I could watch Apothecary Diaries. I think I could do that and just get back in the game a little bit. So we'll see. But I'm excited for episode 14. I hope you all are as well, but we're not going to waste any more time. Thank you all for your comments and kind words and support. But we are going to start episode 14 of the Apothecary Diaries. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Well. As I miss my mouth. Interesting. I'm pretty excited about this. My one complaint, and I know this is probably something that is more an anime complaint than the light novel or the manga, and I'm sure people in the light novel and the manga are going to be nodding their heads going yes. But like with Lowland Shisui, I imagine when you read the light novel especially, you just don't have an idea of how they could be the same person, right? I'm sure a lot of the dialogue and plot points have been like, oh, well, okay, now we can kind of see there's maybe like a little bit of, I'm sure if you read the light novel, the conspiracy theory of Lowland and Shisui being the same person would probably not be as noticeable because you'd be like, why would you think that? Because of the light novel. In the manga, I'm sure it might be a little bit more noticeable, but in the anime, they make it so damn obvious. And I'm like, oh no, it's so true. I'm like 99.9% sure that Lowland is Shisui. We just don't know the context or the reason why. And maybe I'm totally wrong and the rug will pull out from under me and it'll be like, Romania, you were totally off base. And I'll be like, you got me, gal. And I'll be like that. But with Suirei, the anime makes it so obvious that it's Suirei. And I'm like, I almost wish that the anime was a little bit more mysterious because it feels like it's so obvious. It feels like I'm like, dude, does the show think its audience is that dumb? Like they're not gonna figure it out? Or is there a reason they're trying to make it so obvious? Because like they don't have to show us Shisui at all. They didn't have to show us, or Suirei, sorry. Their names are very similar, but they didn't have to show us Suirei at all. They didn't have to show us the head or the hair. The hair is the dead giveaway because their hair is like their hair is the most obvious. And I mean, so Suirei passing as a eunuch, I can see because they're super tall. They're stereotypically, especially I've seen comments about Asian women being stereotypically like generally 5 foot to 5'4". Suirei's like 5'10". So that's like pretty tall for the generalized Asian population. So I'm like, okay, cool. That makes sense. She's a tall ass woman, so she can kind of present. And you know what? There was a recent news story where a woman who was like 6'4", a biologically AFAB woman, was basically taken into custody and fired from a Walmart because she was considered a security risk because some bigoted asshole thought that she was a trans woman and that his wife was in danger. And I'm like, she was a cisgender born woman that was just 6'4", and the guy's like, that can't possibly be a woman because she's 6'4", and I'm like, you're an asshole. And so knowing that that's happened in modern times, 2025, I could see why a guy would look in this story at a woman that was 5'10" and go, has to be a man. And you're just like, what? So that part makes sense. And then I was like, well, from the inspection, why would they, what would they do? Now, here's the interesting thing. when they were talking about that there were 3 men from different regions, the doctor was saying this, 3 men from different regions testing each eunuch to make sure they were a eunuch. The only thing I could think of is, does like drag queen tucking, would that be a possibility? Because, you know, like if you've ever watched a drag show, drag queens tuck, and the process of tucking, you can stick your penis up inside in between things and hide your balls, and you can tape that up and make yourself look pretty smooth down there if you really want to. I didn't know that peni could be so flexible, but apparently so. So a part of me was like, do they just like do a hand search and they put their hand down there and they're like, oh, that looks pretty flat, guess you're a eunuch? Or do they actually like feel that? Because I mean, case in point, what would they do? So I think it's a combination of a couple things of how Sweet Ray has gotten into the rear palace. One, she's super tall, so they just hashtag sexism. They think women can't be that tall, and they're like, that seems pretty obvious for a man. 2, they could have did a pat down there and went, nope, no penis. But I'm like, did you not notice there was maybe something else there too? But then there's the whole thing with the scarring where Sweet Ray has, I feel like they're self-inflicted. I feel like Sweet Ray has self-inflicted these marks to get into the rear palace, or someone's done it to them, but I don't know. So I don't know. I don't know how that works. But I'm very curious to know if that's the case. But then the other thing is, like, you know, if they have all the scars on their body, did the crew also, if they're assuming that Sweet Ray is a man, they wouldn't do like a chest pat down, which Sweet Ray is not a well-endowed person, which neither is Mau Mau. So those women exist, women that have A cups, that don't have big boobs, and that are tall and just are a little more flat-chested. I mean, that exists. So it just sounds like between a combination of sexism and Sweet Ray's design and pure coincidence, they've managed to get into the rear palace as a eunuch, which that all makes sense. That all totally get. But the fact that Mau Mau has met Sweet Ray more than once, as soon as Mau Mau sees Sweet Ray, they're going to be like, you, I know you. Why would Sweet Ray not hide themselves physically in the face? Or is that the point? Do they want Mau Mau to find them? Is that the point? I'm very curious about that, because if Sweet Ray was trying to go incognito, they failed miserably, because Mau Mau, they should know Mau Mau's in the rear palace and is going to discover them instantly. So either Sweet Ray wants to be discovered and wants to tell Mau Mau something, and this was their only way to legitimately get back there, and so that was intentional, or maybe the light novel or the manga has an explanation of why Sweet Ray looks different or isn't noticeable, and the anime is just not picking it up. Because I would like to believe it's not bad writing, but I don't know. I'm curious to see what the show is going to do with Sweet Ray, especially with them being in the rear palace now, how that's going to work. And I'm going to use the pronoun them for Sweet Ray because I have always gotten kind of a trans mask vibe from them, but I don't necessarily, I feel almost uncomfortable saying that, because then it's like, does that discount women that are just tall and don't have big bosoms? I feel very conflicted, but then now that Sweet Ray is trying to pose as a man, it's like, I feel conflicted over what to label them as, because I don't know what the series is going to do with them. And maybe Sweet Ray wants to be a man. I don't know. In that time period, I'd want to be a man too. So, even if it was a eunuch, you know, although I say that, from reading The Last Eunuch of China, the eunuchs, they didn't exactly have the same status as an actual non-castrated male in that society, so I don't know if that's exactly equatable, so we'll see. We'll see. We'll see where that goes, but I'm very curious, because it's so obvious that Sweet Ray and Mau Mau is going to recognize who they are as soon as they see them, so what do we do about that? What do we do? I do like the concept of cleaning that is done throughout this entire episode. There's a callback and a concept to cleaning and how important it is, especially also infrastructure. So the fact that Lishu's bath ran next to this warehouse or this former room, the fact that the infrastructure, I felt like it was making a comment on they don't build them like they used to, and it was like a rushed point to build this extra room on, and then the infrastructure was not thought out, and so it's got this mold and stuff on it, which is pretty gross. So I don't know how what they're going to do with that, but I thought that was interesting to note. I also thought it was a nice tie-in to how Mao Mao says that the concubines, ladies in waiting in their house with Gyokyo would have saw something like that and took care of it. But I just feel bad for Lishu. This poor girl, she is not respected by her ladies in waiting. She needs to just fire all of them and just start anew and get a whole new sect of girls, because these girls are pretty terrible. And I'm like, they don't respect her. They don't treat, like, the woman that was the taste tester that was against her in season 1 is now her only friend and support. I'm like, oh my God. Like, Lishu has done nothing wrong. She's literally this little lamb that was like put under these horrible circumstances. And she's just surrounded by the worst people. And her only like mother figure, Aduo, is now gone. And so she really doesn't have anybody except for of Kanan. So it's kind of, I just feel horrible for her. I'm like, you need to fire all these bitches, hire some new ones, start fresh, and maybe they'll treat you better. It just sucks. I hate that for her. I hate that for her. And the worst part is Lishu like doesn't even seem bothered. She's just like, whatever. Could be worse. I'm like, oh my God, girl. I wanted to give her the biggest hug in this episode because she does not deserve that. So the whole thing with the ghost, I was convinced that it was the ladies in waiting, who are awful, punking her and like trying to scare her. But it turns out to just be like a bunch of factors. This episode felt very Sherlockian. It felt kind of like, something about a necklace. It's one where there's a snake that comes down, through the vents and kills somebody, but a lot of it is like pure coincidence, and there's a lot of red herrings in that one. Oh my God, my mind has gone blank on what it is, but I've read it 1,000 times. It's like leopard spotted. Y'all probably know which Sherlock story I'm talking about. If not, you'll probably find it out really easily if you look it up online. I actually, now that I say that, it's gonna drive me crazy. Sherlock story with the snake. The Adventure of the Speckled Band. There we go. Speckled Band. I was like, it's like a necklace. The Adventure of the Speckled Band is what this episode kind of reminded me of a little bit. But less lethal than that story, right? So Mao Mao makes a point of asking Lishu, like, well, why are you involving us? Why are you not getting Jinshi involved? And then as soon as she says that, she's like, oh, I know what is about to happen. And I'm like, So yeah, so Jinshi gets summoned. I absolutely love Gyokyo and Jinshi's back and forth, where Gyokyo's just like, you mean I'm going to lend you Mao Mao and you're going to give her back? And he's like, no, I want Mao Mao to come back and work for me. She's done working here for you. And I love their back and forth. It's just like right on the edge of them both being like, no, Mao Mao's mine. No, Mao Mao's mine. Now, of course, Jinshi is like, look, Mao Mao needs to come back to me because she knows some secrets. And if she tells anybody, this is gonna, all be a bad thing. So let's not do that. But the thing that got me was that in the last time, I think it was episode 11, was when Gyokyo's like, you can't have Mao Mao work for you. You can't even say her name. You just keep calling her Apothecary. Jinshi has made great strides since the cat's out of the bag or the frog's out of the pond, however you want to word it, because he is like, this Mao Mao. See, I can say her name. We're all good now. I'm like, I just feel so much for Hangyang and especially Gaoshun. Bless Gaoshun's heart. His life has gotten even worse. Things have gotten so much harder for Gaoshun since all this has gone down. He's just like, because Jinshi was problematic enough when he was worried all the time that Mao Mao would find out about his status. Now that she knows, even though she's in denial and hasn't quite made herself connect two and two that Jinshi is the Emperor's brother's son, Jinshi's just going all out. He's like, no, she's mine. Jinshi's gotten pretty bold and good for him. But Mao Mao's like, God, I liked it better when you were just being a kid. She won't be able to ask anything when she gets back. I'll make sure her lips are sealed. Him putting the finger on her lips, being like, I'll make sure they're sealed. And Mao Mao's just like, she's like, well, I liked it better when you were really quiet and blushy the whole time. What is this? One thing that I love about Mao Mao and Jinshi's relationship is that if this had been any other woman and Jinshi had his hand on her head and his finger on her lips, that woman would have fainted. She would have had an orgasm and fainted, melted into a puddle on the spot. But Mao Mao's just like, what the hell was that? She is not the least bit deterred by his flirting because that's not the type of Jinshi that she likes. She likes the Jinshi that puts down all the walls and isn't like, because whenever Jinshi's flashing the flirty smile or being like, flirty and kind of manipulative, that's not Jinshi. It's like Locken. Jinshi is a lot like Locken, which is crazy. And I know there's a Freudian thing about that you like your dad. There's like a whole Freudian theory about that. You like people that are like your father. And I'm like, Mao Mao kind of adheres to that theory just a wee bit because Jinshi is a lot like Locken in the sense that he puts up this facade to manipulate people, but then underneath you see that he's a totally different person. And Fengshen liked the totally different person, and Mao Mao likes the totally different person. She likes when Jinshi strips down those walls and isn't this cool manipulator when he's just like a childish kid. Like, she likes that. And she likes him being a little bit more guarded and like letting that down slowly around her. Poor Gaoshun, though, he like runs out after Jinshi like, ah! And then Gyokyo's like, what happened? And she's like, it was a frog's fault. And they're like, I like that Mao Mao can say that. I like the frog is kind of the alibi and the excuse, but it's a way that she can say it and get that off her chest without exposing the secret that she knows. She's just like, this damn frog. And everybody's like, what about that frog? Right? She's like, I love it. And then she realizes, she's like, you know what? I was really eager to take that Ox Bazor, but now Jinshi's going to be paying it back in kind and going to be asking it from me. And I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have taken that Ox Bazor. Girl, you were hook, line, and sinker on that. You got talked down way too easy. So yeah. So I also like that Mao Mao notices how Jinshi like glamours the crowd, and she's just like, And then she questions how much Gaoshun knows, and she's like, well, is Gaoshun even a eunuch? And girl, he is not. But she's like, that doesn't matter. I like that at the end of the day, the show can reference that Mao Mao kind of knows what's going on, but she's not going to let it bother her because at the end of the day, that's not important right now. She can file it away, and if we need to bring it out, sure, why not? But I like the fact that Lishu is kind of has the blushy cheeks around Jinshi, not because she not only finds him cute and attractive, but also Jinshi looks exactly like Aduo, which is her mom, her foster mom, so she's kind of attached to him. So I kind of like that little reasoning for it. But yeah, these other ladies are bitches. They're awful to her. And then this lady that comes in with the hairpin that she clearly took from Lishu, and Lishu, because she's an angel saint lamb, did nothing to stop her, is just... I feel like Jinshi was just waiting to pounce on that, and then he finally gets a reason to at the end of the episode, which good for him. I felt like Jinshi and Mao Mao have both had their chances with some of these handmaidens to be like, let's get down to brass tacks, y'all. But this woman, man, she is very stereotypical, like just the stereotypical bitchy woman vibe, right? I'm like, Lishu is an angel. I don't know why these people aren't trying to protect her more. Like, it feels to me like you would think they would be all about protecting her because Lishu is the most innocent out of all of the consorts. But instead, they view her as the weakest and the easiest to take advantage of. And because they're of lower status on the ladder, they just take advantage of her and try to like exercise whatever power they can that they normally wouldn't be afforded to. And Jinshi, by the end of the episode, is like, actually, you're on this rung of the ladder. Let's stay in our lane and not forget about that. And it's like, ugh. So, and the crazy part is they all have that reaction to him as the head eunuch. If they knew that that was the emperor's brother son, they probably would have fainted on the spot. Just saying. Just saying. So yeah, so this one lady's kind of upset because Kanan has taken her place as the head lady in waiting, which I really like Kanan. Kanan has come a long way since season 1. She really has. And Jinshi uses his power of flirtation to go get these women to leave the room, and it's great. I love it. I love Gaoshun, who's just like, yep, and Mao Mao's like, well, look at you, Jinshi using the power of manipulation. Doesn't work on Mao Mao, though. Again, these women are bitches. They know that Lishu likes a colder bath, which, girl, I don't know how. But they instead make it really hot for no reason and make her wait. Like, it's so sad. I wonder, too, if the fact that the water has to sit there for a long time contributes to the mold and infrastructure as well, because it isn't drained as soon. I'm just saying, if it's all wood, I can't imagine that that's, over time a good thing. But I'm glad that we got, an explanation this episode about the dancing ghost. But this whole episode just made me feel so bad for Lishu. I really did. I felt so bad for her because of her mom and her relationship. The fact that she feels guilty because her mom having her prevented her from dancing and she went into a depression and died after that. What the hell? This girl's had like, I would say of all the consorts, Lishu has maybe the most tragic backstory. Gyokyo, we don't know much about her. I feel like Ado has the best backstory because she like fell in love with her childhood friend and had a baby with him, and then she gets to go live scot-free off site and have a great rest of her life. Good for her. Gyokyo is probably like the second best because she seems like the emperor really loves her and she has a daughter and everything's great for her. Lihua is like the second to last because she literally was being poisoned and lost her child. So, not good. But then you have Lishu, who lost her mom. Her mom kind of felt there was like a guilt trip with her mom's death because she couldn't live out her ambitions because of having Lishu. Then her dad groomed her as an infant to go and be sexually assaulted by the previous emperor. And then the previous emperor died and she was shuffled around to be not respected by anybody and have no say. Like, her entire childhood has been so stressful, and she's like 14 years old. She's a literal kid and she has had no childhood, and I feel so bad for Lishu. I'm just like, girl, like that would mess you up. That would mess you up for relationships. That would mess you up on anything. Like, and the fact that the emperor, thank God, is not interested in her, it's like, well, then what's going to happen to her? Is she just going to have to sit around till she's 20 for another 6 years and then maybe he'll look at her? And what does that even mean? And it's just, I feel so bad for her. I feel like of all the consorts, she just has this existence that's just there and she doesn't have friends. And I just feel bad for her. Because at least Gyokyo and Lihua have her handmaidens that can like, her ladies in waiting that can like help her and talk to her and have a friendship, and they can, and all the other consorts are around the same age so they can talk to each other, but Lishu is like left out. I'm like, oh, I feel so bad for her. I really do. But yeah. So they figure out the drain, they figure out the stuff with the copper mirror and everything and how it creates the face. I almost felt like the copper mirror with the face on it was a gift from her mom to her to always remember her. But Lishu takes it like the worst way, as like a sign that her mom's mad at her. And I'm like, oh, girl, no. Really, really sad. I felt really bad for Lishu in this. Like this episode, especially when she breaks down and cries, because all of these like consorts are supposed to be like above it and like have this air of regality to them and serenity, and for Lishu to break down and cry, I feel like it says so much, not only for how Lishu is comfortable around Mao Mao, but also around Jinshi and Gaoshun and her head lady in waiting. I just felt so bad for her. But damn, Jinshi and Mao Mao sticking up for Lishu. I'm glad that Jinshi was the one to do it this time around because, Mao Mao's already made an impression with Lihua's ladies in waiting. I was like, is Mao Mao going to be the one to go around to every single like consort and smack their ladies in waiting around? No, in this case, Jinshi gets in on it too. So good for him. But I feel like every lady in waiting now, including Lolan, has an affinity towards Mao Mao. And so girl, Mao Mao, you don't realize that you have set yourself up. You could be empress and they'd probably be okay with it. If Jinshi became the emperor after his Papa Bro and you were empress, they'd probably be like, all right. Also though, Mao Mao, even though I would not say she's directly like the grandmother that's like Shishi, Mao Mao's pretty aggressive. And she ain't afraid to slap a bitch. I'd be a little bit afraid of Mao Mao as an empress. I'd be a bit afraid of that. Maybe we don't need that. Maybe we need her and Jinshi to go off and be their own people. Maybe we need that instead. We'll see. But yeah, it was so sweet. Like the way that Mao Mao and them just let her kind of mourn and grieve in that moment, which this poor kid, all the stress. Now, Mao Mao at this point, when Lishu is crying about the mirror, she says, I don't really understand what it feels like to think fondly of a mother. And because Mao Mao and her mom don't really have much of a relationship. Her mom was, in a state ever since Mao Mao was born. So Mao Mao has never really been connected to her mom. So she doesn't really know what that feels like. And you can kind of tell that she's kind of, sort of displaced by this moment. To me, though, I would tell Mao Mao, be like, well, just think of it like Lolan. Think of it like Loman, not Lolan. Oh my God, Loman and your relationship with him. Although she does say, when explaining the mirror trick, she does say my adopted father. And I'm sure she's made that distinction in previous episodes, but it stuck out for me here because we talk about Locken later on, where Mau Mau, it wasn't a bad thing against Loman. It was literally Mau Mau not giving credit to Locken because she knows that people in the room, specifically Gao Shun and Jinshi, know that Locken is her biological father. So she said, my father taught me this trick. Jinshi and Gao Shun would instantly go, oh, Locken. So she was like, my adopted father. We ain't gonna give Locken credit. We're gonna give Loman credit. And I'm like, oh, that was smart. And that distinction is very clear. So yeah, these bitches come back in the room. And Mau Mau's like, yep, she seems like a peach. When she took the mirror away from her, I was like, I don't know how these women haven't been fired because they're supposed to, they literally, I get that they probably feel like a sense of superiority because their boss is a 14-year-old and they're like, why do I have to listen to you just because you're the head consort? They probably feel like it's by obligatory or involuntarily. But I'm like, she's still the consort. You still have to listen to her. What the fudge are you doing? So I was so mad when she took that mirror away. And then luckily Jinshi was like, no, like give her the mirror back. It's precious to her. But also, let me take that pin away. Jinshi with that pin away with a smile on his face is absolutely terrifying. That whole scene, I'm going to take a picture of that right now because it might be the thumbnail. That whole scene of him taking the hairpin away and just holding it in his hands, which now, the first core with the hairpin, that's starting to make sense now. He was like, did you take this from Lishu instead of her giving it to you? Because that'd be highly inappropriate for you to do that. And the way his voice dropped an octave and he was holding the pin, I'm like, ma'am, you don't even realize that is the Emperor's bro son. You would be pissing your pants if you knew. He's like, no. He's like, now I have a reason. And he's like, I would refrain from behaving that way that would contradict your status. You might get in trouble. Jinshi, I love that Mau Mau's like, well, that was scary. I love that Mau Mau's like, okay, respect. I'm like, Mau Mau and Jinshi can both be very scary. And they both react to each other being scary the exact same way. And it's kind of cute. I kind of like it. It's very cute. So then the doctor is talking about the new eunuchs, which the doctor is very homosexually coded. I'm like, okay, sir, you ain't dallying with the ladies. So he's like, oh, the eunuchs, all right, cool. Which the last eunuch of China does talk about how a lot of the eunuchs were kind of very sexually, they were horny on main because they couldn't do much else. So I could see the doctor getting all excited about. He's like, there's gonna be a calendar. I hope that Sui Ray is Mr. October. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, I don't know if that's gonna be appropriate. So they're like, to prevent fraud, it's done every time we enter and exit, unless they're a eunuch. Now Mau Mau at this point is like, oh, the only people who could enter the rear palace are the emperor and his kin that aren't eunuchs. Mau Mau, you figured it out. You know that it's the emperor's brother. You figured it out, girl. And she's just like, we won't worry about it. I'm like, Jinshi's gonna have to tell you. He's gonna have to sit you down on his lap and be like, look, girl, can we talk? And she's gonna be like, no, like a cat, like trying to bathe a cat is what it's gonna be like. And Gao Shun's like, let's just get this over with. I'd like to retire at some point. So yeah, there's 30 that have been brought into the rear palace. And Mau Mau's like, you're getting a bit excited about this. So Jinshi is getting a little frustrated because Gao Shun's like, hey, it's been a while. And Jinshi's like, I don't want to talk about it. He's like, you probably need to tell her because we're going to have to handle some things. She probably needs to know. And he's like, I'll tell her at the right time. And Gao Shun's like, is the right time in a cave when she's sitting on your lap? Because you didn't do that. And it's like, ugh. He's like, your attitude is obvious. He's like, you're being too deliberate. You need to just go ahead and tell her. He's like, Zhao Mao was looking at you like you were a dead worm. And I love that Jinshi, what's interesting is the growth, because in season 1, the fact of Mau Mau looking at him like a dead worm, Jinshi would have been like, she looked at me like an insect. Isn't that great? Ha ha ha. Now though, he's like, shut up. I know. He's like, I get it. Yes. I liked in season 1, Gao Shun was okay with Jinshi reacting that way about her looking at him like a dead worm because she was just a toy. She was just a pawn. But now that she not only is a pawn, but also someone that could, end up with Jinshi, I think Gao Shun's like, does she need to look at you like a dead worm if she's supposed to be attracted to you? If this is all supposed to work out matchmaker-wise, is she supposed to look at you like a dead worm? I mean, it's part of their character dynamic, but he's like, and Gao Shun's like, you need to make up your mind fast and tell her, or she's going to find out from somebody else, and that's going to be a problem. And Jinshi's like, well, you want her on our side right away, don't you? And he's like, yeah. The strategist will interfere, though. And he's like, please fight poison. I like Gao Shun says, please fight poison with poison. Because, what Jinshi doesn't know is that Locken has already swore revenge on him for touching her shoulder 3 times. He's already swore revenge on Jinshi. So Jinshi's already in hot water with Locken, regardless. And Jinshi is like, Grand Commandant Khan Locken. So they're from the Khan clan. Khan! I don't want to strain my voice too much, but it made me think of Star Trek. Imagine that. So he's Commandant Khan Locken. So I'm guessing is Loman like Khan Loman? Maybe the Khan clan. Interesting. He took over as head of his family through force from his father and his half-brother. So yeah, back in season 1, when Locken was talking about his family trying to ship him away and getting him killed in battle, guess that didn't work out. Guess he came back. Guess who's back in the house and took over the family? That's Locken. So Locken is now head of the family. Girl, Mao Mao, who still thinks she's a lowly servant that has no impact on anything, your dad is the head of his family. Girl, you got status and you don't even realize it. Yeah. He's now someone even the emperor respects. Yeah, I'm like, Mao Mao, the emperor is totally on board with you getting with Jinshi because he's like, oh yeah, your dad's a great guy. I'm like, oh my God. And by great, I mean I'm terrified of him and he's pretty well established. I like him kind of sauntering with the monocle in the shot there, looking terrifying, and everybody's just like that. Mao Mao takes a lot after Locken as well, right? Locken's a very influential character in this story. He doesn't belong to any. He's basically a wild card. Basically, Locken is a wild card and does whatever he wants. Wandering between people at will. Many have tried to subdue him before he caused trouble, but they were all beat back with more than a few light burns to pay for it. That seems very Mao Mao as well. He's just like, okay, I'll get you back if you try to hurt me. Mao Mao does the same thing. But yeah. So then from there, nobody knows what goes on in his head. Well, we as the audience kind of do. I think also the face synesthesia kind of like throws off as well. So they don't want Locken to know that Mao Mao's getting brought into all of this. Probably because Locken wants to protect his daughter. Probably. And probably Locken's worried that her getting with the emperor and his son is going to put her in a lot of danger. I could see that. Nobody knows what goes on in his head. Well, we kind of do as the audience, though. Don't interact with him unless necessary. I love that shot of his angry face next to Jinshi's. It is so good. Yes, because Mao Mao's had that face as well. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. That shot is so damn good. I love it. Yes. But in order to bring Mao Mao into our camp, in order for Mao Mao to be on our side, we got to deal with him. I honestly don't think... I don't know how they're going to plan to deal with him. I feel like Locken, even though he wants to protect Mao Mao, if he knows... I could see Locken like getting on eye level with Jinshi, even though he can't see Jinshi's face because of his face synesthesia, and just being like, if you hurt my daughter, I will make you a eunuch, and just like get on his level with him. I feel like Locken would let Mao Mao work with Jinshi, even though Jinshi doesn't think that he will, but under the stipulation that if he messes up, Locken's going to kill him. I feel like that's the case. I feel like Jinshi... It may not be as hard as Jinshi believes, right? And Jinshi's like, I want to tell Mao Mao the truth, to know why I'm in my current position and why I'm hiding my true self. We all want to know that as well. So we're rooting for you, Jinshi, to get what you want. But when she learns the truth, how will she react? Well, I think it's going to be complicated. I don't think that Mau Mau is necessarily going to be bothered by it because she's kind of figured it out on her own. But I feel like it's going to depend on Mau Mau's self-worth. And if Mau Mau thinks she deserves the right to be next to and working with the Emperor's brother's son, which we, the audience, know she very much is worthy of doing so, but it's whether she thinks that herself. So what can you do? What can you do? Anyway. But yeah. And so then they talk about how many complaints. There's more business in the rear palace. Most of it's regarding Lolan. She has too many servants and she's too flashy. You know, the usual. She's distracting from being a peasant in her days off. She ruins the atmosphere of the rear palace and so on. But this one is new. A court lady tried to flirt with one of the eunuchs. So they're planning on dividing the eunuchs based on their skills to different parts of the rear palace. And Gao Shun's like, we need to be careful because these are all 30 new eunuchs. Some of them could be moles. Sweet Ray. And we need to make sure that we put them in the right place. So, and Jinshi's like, well, I should probably take a look, even if it's just a formality, into this. And Gao Shun's like, yeah, it's very troublesome, but you don't have a choice. So yeah, I feel kind of bad for Jinshi in this moment because he's caught between a rock and a hard place too. He doesn't want to be the Emperor's brother, and he doesn't want to be the Emperor that's next in line. He wants a son to be born so he can be like, let's hurry this up so I don't have to worry about this. But at the same time, him having to deal with the stuff as a eunuch is problematic as well. So the next day, the ones with the white belts are the new ones, which Sui Ray is literally right there. Has Jinshi never seen Sui Ray before? I guess not. I guess Mau Mau only, if I'm thinking correctly, Mau Mau has only seen Sui Ray outside of the rear palace when she went to the pharmacy and she saw Li Haku and all of that. So that's the only time, and she was only able to go outside the rear palace because she was working for Jinshi outside the rear palace. So Sui Ray has never been inside the rear palace, and that's why Jinshi probably hasn't seen her or seen them. So that explains it, but Mau Mau knows what Sui Ray looks like. So the moment Mau Mau sees Sui Ray, it's all going to be over. The question is, does Sui Ray want Mau Mau to be seen to see them, or does Sui Ray not believe Mau Mau's in the rear palace? Like, how does that work? I guess we'll find out. But yeah. And I guess my thing is, would none of these, I guess they were all Aduo. Okay, Sui Ray was working with Aduo, weren't they? So how did Jinshi not see them? I feel like Sui Ray was with Aduo's ladies in waiting. So when they left, Aduo's ladies in waiting left as well. So there's that. That's how that got away with it. I guess so. But yeah. Apparently, Sui Ray is very intelligent and quite thoughtful towards women. And Gao Shun's like looking directly at Jinshi like, sounds like the pot calling the kettle black, doesn't it? A little bit. A little bit. My throat is getting dry, so I'm going to not do too much more. But yeah. So Sui Ray has all the scars on their hands, which I feel are self-inflicted. Also, that's kind of like if Mau Mau's cat-coated. Is Sui Ray having all the scars like cat scratches, like Mau Mau getting the better of her? I don't know. So they're like, we'll find work more suited to your skills. So I wonder what kind of work Sui Ray is wanting to with all of the scars. Wondering how that's going to work. So the guy, the episode ends with this guy getting mad, saying that this ice for a high-ranking concubine was spilled over, and it was the cart or whatever, and Xiaolin seems to be responsible for this, and she's holding this hairpin from someone, looking very scared. I feel scared for Xiaolin. Mau Mau is there, so I'm a bit worried. I'm curious, like, is Mau Mau going to see Sui Ray? How is Jinshi going to help out Mau Mau and Xiaolin getting out of this? Probably. And what is going to happen about this ice, and is Xiaolin going to be okay? I'm glad that I don't have to wait a week for me to watch this episode. This episode is going to come out this weekend. I'm going to be able to see it, which is great. So I'm excited about that. So we'll just see where that goes. But anyway, I'm really excited to see episode 15. I'm not going to have to wait that long, and neither will you all, hopefully. So hopefully my voice keeps coming back. My throat is a little dry today, so I'm going to keep drinking water and keep being hydrated, and do the best I can with that. Maybe have some chicken noodle soup for lunch and do that. But in the meantime, I'm really excited to hear your comments down below. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with episode 15 of the Apothecary Diaries. Bye.